Hey everybody, I'm Connor, this is Doug, and welcome to Pod Save the Queen, a podcast that celebrates the people and culture of Great Britain. In this episode, we'll take a culinary journey from Liverpool to Canterbury, tasting everything from mincemeat pies and Yorkshire pudding to full English breakfast and bangers and mash. We'll also examine the linguistic peculiarities of the Cockney and Scouse accents and delve into the lesser works of Charles Dickens. Finally,
Connor, as much as I want people to hear your Liverpudlian accent, this is not that podcast. This is the Bethel School District Presents, a podcast about the Bethel School District. On this episode, we're chatting with Equity Specialist Darius Alexander about his work with students and what the movie Rocky means to him and to his work.
Yo, Adrian, it's me, Rocky.
But first, our 2019 bond financed a lot of new projects.
It sure did. The new Catherine G. Johnson Elementary opened earlier this year. Phase 2 of Challenger High School just wrapped this fall. And the new Natchez Trail Elementary School is under construction right now and is scheduled to open next fall.
That's right, but the one project people are very interested in is the new Bethel High School, and the big question is about the timeline for construction to start that project. Let's begin our conversation with a comment Superintendent Tom Siegel made during a construction update at a recent school board meeting.
The new Bethel High School, it's going to be 16 years from the beginning of acquiring that property until it's finally open and operating. And a significant portion of that is, again, first of all, you got to pass a bond, which, as you know, is not an easy thing. But the other thing is simply the regulations related to all the different procedures and requirements of the environmental and zoning codes are just absolutely enormous. It takes literally years to work your way through all the bureaucratic requirements. So if I would, I'd like to be in a state where you could, hey, we got a piece of property, let's put the concrete down and get going. 6 months later, you're up and operating. It doesn't happen that way here. It is extremely complex and it's extremely expensive, very frankly. But so you just can't, say, hey, we need a school, we'll get the bond money and we'll build it. It's just not that simple. It's really complex.
So let's dive into that complexity. When our school board voted to purchase 54 acres of land from Rainier View Christian Church in 2009, the hope, obviously, was that we'd be able to build a much-needed fourth comprehensive high school on the site in a matter of years.
But as we all know, it didn't work out that way. First off, the property wasn't zoned for a high school back in 2009. They knew that, and district leaders immediately began working to have the property rezoned. That process takes a while. It actually took 3 years and was followed by another year of, red tape. That takes us to 2013.
So the Pierce County Council eventually approved a plan to build a high school on the land, but complaints filed with the state's Growth Management Act hearing board delayed the project once again. After years and years of back and forth, Governor Jay Inslee finally signed a bill into law in 2017 that allowed Bethel to build a school on the site, despite it being located about a mile outside Pierce County's urban growth boundary.
So with all the governmental hurdles overcome, we were finally ready to build the school. All that was left was to pass a school construction bond to fund it. A bond to build the school failed with voters in February 2018, and it failed again in November of 2018.
The bond finally passed in 2019, and the district's construction team immediately began work on the new school. But then, just as plans were being made to construct the school, updates to a Pierce County stormwater manual delayed the project once again.
They did, and the changes to the stormwater manual involved a Category 1 wetland, which is located on the southeast corner of the new Bethel High School site. The process to evaluate the site using the new manual and developing a stormwater system took time, but our construction team is getting those updated documents and designs to the county this fall, including a conditional use permit application.
So, more than 13 years after purchasing the land, we're super excited to begin construction on the project either late next year or early 2024. The construction timeline is 27 months with an anticipated opening in the fall of 2026.
We want to get the school open as quickly as possible, but we have to follow the process even when it changes under our feet.
It does make you wonder, though, with all this trouble, why did the district buy the land in the first place?
That is a great question, and Superintendent Tom Siegel addressed that as well.
Some of the board members have been here long enough. They know the genesis of that property. We conducted a survey because we knew we needed to have a new high school, and there was no other property available anywhere in the Bethel School District to buy that would be large enough to handle a school this size. The only other option, and we looked at several other options, was basically you'd have to buy residential property, basically condemning something like 50 to 60 residential pieces of property. And the school board says, no, we're not going to condemn property to build a school. That's why this property is out south of 224th. And we actually had to change the Growth Management Act, which regulates land use in this state. First time it was ever modified in order to allow this piece of property to be developed. This is, again, really complex and frankly, because of all the complexity and requirements, expensive.
It seems like the scheduled opening in 2026 is far away, but time seems to be moving faster and faster these days. I think it'll be here before we know it.
I think you're just getting older.
Ouch.
Coming up after the break, I'll sit down with Equity Specialist Darius Alexander. Stay with us.
Hey everybody, before the pandemic, I remember standing in the parking lot one morning at Bethel High School and, believe it or not, a Black Hawk helicopter flew in and landed in the parking lot. I had a pretty sturdy tripod with my camera on it to capture the event, but the wind from the rotors blew it over. Lucky I had my hands on it, but the tripod bag blew all the way across the parking lot. I tell you that story to tell you this. That day was the morning of All Bethel Community Day, and all day long families and kids got to check out the Black Hawk along with a bunch of other military vehicles from our friends at Joint Base Lewis McChord. ABC Day is full of great things to do. Military vehicles, petting zoo, free ice cream, concerts, performances, demonstrations, and more. Be sure to mark your calendars for October 1st at Bethel High School. All Bethel Community Day will run from 9 to 3 p.m. We hope to see you there, and I've been told the Black Hawk has been scheduled.
And we're back.
We are, and so are the students. Kids are back in school, and one area our school board has their eye on this school year is equity, both in our schools and across the district. Connor, equity is a really broad-reaching subject. Can you unpack it for us a little bit?
Yeah, I recently had a chance to sit down with Darius Alexander, one of our excellent equity specialists, to talk about Bethel's commitment to equitable and accessible opportunities for all members of our community. I started the conversation by asking him about the difference between equity and equality.
So when we talk about equity and equality, equality is pretty much we give everybody the same thing, right? And so a lot of times people are saying, let's treat everybody equal. What we're really looking for, though, is everybody having the same opportunities. So there's an image that most equity trainings use of people going to watch a baseball game. And so you have tall person, medium height person, short person. And equality is giving everyone the same box. So I'll just use you and I as an example. I'm about 5'5". You look like you're about 6'2", 6'3". If we both get the same size box, you're still at an advantage and I'm still struggling a little bit. So equity is if you can already see the game, I don't really need to give you anything else, but the other person may need the box so that they can actually see the game and have the same opportunities as you. So it's really about meeting people where they're at and giving them what they need, when they need it, where they need it. And if we think about education, I think a real simple way to think about it is like school supplies. There's some families that are going to come equipped with everything. And then there's some families that have absolutely nothing. So when we come to the classroom, if we give everybody pencils, that's equality. But there's only a certain group of kids in your classroom that may need those pencils. So then how do we identify what those things are? And that's what the focus on equity is in our district.
That's a great way to explain it, but how does that translate to your day-to-day work at Bethel High School?
In working with students, and when we talk about equity, just being completely honest, a lot of people jump straight to race issues. Equity is so much more, and in working with students face-to-face, what it really could be is a kid is struggling, having a rough day, and you have to have those conversations with them to figure out, why are you having a rough day? How's that contributing to you failing your classes? And through that, you're identifying barriers all day long. So last year especially, there was a lot of anxiety returning back to school. So some kids were just ready to jump in, and some kids were like, I'm having a hard time interacting with human beings. So there's an equity issue, right? So then it's trying to connect students to the right resources, the right staff members to make sure that they can navigate their day so that they even have a chance to succeed and graduate and do all the things that they need to do.
You and your team in the equity department are doing amazing work in all of our schools. I know there's always room to get better, but where are we succeeding as a district in terms of equity?
I know that we are getting better on building relationships and just creating space for real conversations. And it's not just a Bethel district specific thing. This is education system worldwide. We're doing a good job of just giving kids the opportunity to come out and say, here's what I'm experiencing. What I love that we're doing in our district is really just putting it out there for kids to say, here's how school is going for us. You all graduated from school years ago, but in our world, here's what's going on in the classroom. Here's what's going on in the hallways. Here's what's going on in social media that's becoming a barrier to us getting what we need to when we walk through the doors of the school.
I imagine a lot of your job is forming relationships with students, making them feel comfortable with you, making them feel like they can trust you to help with these. How do you go about that? What's kind of the secret to getting these kids to trust that you're actually there to help them?
For me, I'm honest with them about who I am and what my intentions are, and then I give them the floor. Every student that comes into my office, whether it's they got connected with me because they got in trouble for some reason, I'm always going to let them talk first. I always tell them that my job is to work for them. And as soon as they get talking, the more that they come in and the more that they have the conversations and really see that I'm able to listen to them, that's how I build trust.
So summer's over now. We're getting started with a new school year. What are your goals for the year?
This year, I'm really hoping to reach a larger audience in this. I think this is our 4th year of our department having equity specialists. Over the past 3 years, we've done a good job of kind of identifying what the barriers are, how we can reach students. And this year, the goal is really just to get students' voices out there more, and even more so, getting the community and parents involved so that we can hear what's going on for them. As we saw last year, people have a lot to say. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but I think we also have to be willing, not willing, but we have to have the time to listen to them, to get the input so that we can give the right information and help the community, help parents, and help kids figure out how to navigate the system and get the things that they need. So one of the goals this year is making sure that we have more clubs and that parents know more about it, that students know more about it, that we're communicating it to them in a way that they actually will read and listen to so that they know what's out there.
You recently had the opportunity to speak to students at our August graduation ceremony, and you spoke pretty passionately about your history in the district. Why was that important for you, and what did it mean for you to see these kids reaching their goals?
I think it just spoke a lot for our community. I am a Bethel kid, and I know that I am where I'm at now because teachers poured into me and people were there. For me personally, I've been through a lot of struggles, and my father passed away my senior year, and I had teachers at Spanaway Lake that said, we're not going to let you fail. We're not going to let you quit. Even though life is hard, we're going to help you keep fighting. And the last time my dad saw me speak was on that stage at Spanaway Lake. So being back there just reminded me of how major Bethel School District was and making me who I am, but then also showing everything that can happen for our students. I'm a product of this environment and people pouring into me, so it really just shows the potential that our district always has had and is continue to grow and having.
So, changing gears a little bit, I understand one of your favorite movies is Rocky. What is it that you like about that movie, and how does it fit into the work you're doing here in Bethel?
So I don't remember the whole quote, but pretty much the gist of the quote that I love from the Rocky movie is just about how life is hard. Life is going to knock you down, but it's always a choice about whether or not you're willing to fight for yourself. So it's not about how hard you can hit and how hard you can fight, but it's about how many times you can get hit and keep moving forward. And that's how winning is done. That's one of the quotes that I love from that. And when I work with the kids, what I really see is like these kids have so many things going on in their lives. And what is the most powerful thing for me is when I see a kid that's living in their car or have issues at home or they're struggling to be able to eat and they keep showing up and they keep showing up and then they find their way to our office or they find their way to a teacher and they say, I still want to make it. I'm failing all my classes, but I still want to make it. And then they have that one breakthrough, one step at a time. One of the other quotes I love is it says, to win a fight, it's one step, one round, one punch at a time. And that's what our kids are really doing. They're showing up, they're knocking out one assignment. That's a win. I love seeing those kind of things. And when I think about Rocky and working with these kids, like it hits me hard and gives me chills when I see that kid come in and say, Mr. Alexander, I passed the science test today. Even though I'm failing all my classes, I passed this test today. And then by the end of the year, they're passing all their classes. So that's really why that really stands out to me.
Awesome. Thanks, Darius. Really appreciate you coming by.
Thank you.
And that's our show. Pod Save the Queen is in the books. Connor, did you learn anything interesting researching British culture for the show?
I did. Did you know the British national anthem, God Save the Queen, sounds exactly like My Country 'Tis of Thee? Isn't that weird?
I had no idea.
And speaking of national anthems, I know this is a little beside the point. Do you know the Japanese national anthem only has 18 words?
Only 8, like a haiku?
Sure, if you don't know what a haiku is.
I, of course, know haikus. There once was a podcast from Nantucket.
And thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Doug. This is Connor. We will see you next week.